At some point in life, we all face the weight of wanting to control everything. We feel the urge to plan every step, to foresee all scenarios, and we cling to a constant fear of what might go wrong. However, there is a freedom that emerges when you stop fighting the flow of life. What once seemed like unstable ground full of uncertainties suddenly reveals itself as fertile ground for new opportunities and growth. The secret: letting go. When you stop clinging to the future and obsessing over the present, something magical happens. You begin to realize that you already carry within you the strength and peace you've been searching for. Now imagine if you could abandon that fear and embrace the freedom of living in the present moment. This is the promise of Buddhist wisdom, which teaches us to walk through life with ease, letting go of the chains of fear and anxiety. Lesson 1. Fear is a seed. Plant it and it grows. Fear, although a universal emotion, is one of the greatest traps we create for ourselves. In Buddhism, it is described as a seed. If you plant a seed of fear in your mind, it begins to grow and distort the reality around you. Imagine, for instance, that you fear losing your job. That fear starts to influence your actions. You become more cautious, hesitate, lose confidence in your abilities, and without realizing it, might start drifting away from opportunities. Buddhism reminds us that the mind is like fertile soil. It accepts both good and bad seeds without judgment. The secret is not to avoid fear, but to change your focus. When you feel fear growing in your mind, take a deep breath and ask yourself, is this thought helping me build peace or feeding my anxiety? You are the gardener of your own mind, and you can choose what seeds you want to plant. Lesson 2. True strength lies in surrender. In a world that constantly tells us to control everything, Buddhism offers a surprising perspective. True strength doesn't come from trying to control, but from the ability to surrender. Surrender in the Buddhist context doesn't mean weakness or passivity, but rather trusting the flow of life and allowing it to unfold naturally. Imagine you are holding water in your hands. The tighter you grip it, the faster it slips away. But if you open your hand, the water stays. The same goes for life. When we try to control, we lose energy. But when we learn to relax and trust, life flows more easily. Buddhism teaches us that by letting go of the need to control, we open space for a greater force, the trust in life and our own steps. If this content makes sense to you, like it, share it with someone who could benefit from this message, subscribe to the channel for more transformative insights, and let's go together to the end of this reflection. Lesson 3. Anxiety belongs to tomorrow. Peace belongs to now. Have you ever caught yourself worrying about the future? If so, know that this anxiety is a mental projection. True peace can only be found in the present moment. Buddhism teaches us that the mind tends to create scenarios for the future. What could go wrong, what we're not controlling, and so on. These thoughts distort our perception of the present and generate anxiety. The secret is to focus on now, on what you can control, which is your breath, your mind, and your being. When you feel anxiety growing, pause and ask yourself, am I living in the present, or am I creating a future that doesn't exist? By returning to the present, you'll start to realize that peace isn't in controlling what's coming, but in accepting what is. Lesson 4. The weight of imagined fears. Oftentimes, the greatest source of our anxiety isn't something that actually happens, but the imaginary scenarios our minds create. Our natural tendency is to exaggerate difficulties, creating storms within ourselves over things that never materialize. Buddhism teaches us to realize that these fears are illusions. They are like shadows created by our minds, making us fear what doesn't exist. How many times have you worried about something, only to later realize that the situation wasn't as bad as it seemed? What's important here is understanding that thoughts are just thoughts and not necessarily reality. Freedom comes when we learn to see that we are living in a story our minds have created, not in actual events. Lesson 5. Control blocks faith. The relentless pursuit of control is a subtle form of insecurity. Buddhism warns us that when we try to control every aspect of our lives, we distance ourselves from faith. Faith in this context is not passive, but active. It's about trusting that even without full control, everything will unfold as it needs to. When you have faith, you act, but without obsession over the outcome. You plant a seed and trust it will grow. Control, on the other hand, is a reflection of fear. True freedom comes when you can act with intention, but without clinging to the result, allowing life to unfold as it should. Lesson 6. Letting go is like growing. When we cling to fear, control, and worry, we are limiting our own growth. Buddhism teaches us that true freedom comes from letting go. Letting go doesn't mean giving up, but rather creating space for the new. Imagine you're trying to hold water in your hands. The harder you grip, the faster it slips away. But when you relax and let go, the current will carry you naturally. Life is the same way. The more you try to control, the more you restrict what could be a natural process. Letting go creates space for creativity, love, and joy. When you release fear and the need for control, you allow yourself to grow and expand in ways you never imagined. Lesson 7. Life flows. When you step aside. Buddhism teaches that life works best when we stop trying to control every detail. The need to interfere constantly creates resistance, making the journey harder. When we stop interfering, we begin to notice that life moves on its own. This doesn't mean neglecting or being inactive, but trusting the process. When we take a step back, we allow life to guide us without the constant need to control or predict what's next. Often, when we can relax and allow things to unfold, we're surprised by the results. Lesson 8. Living in harmony with life. True power comes from living in harmony with life, not trying to dominate it. Buddhism teaches us that we're not here to fight against life, but to flow with it. This involves deep trust in life's process, its timing, and its lessons. As you start to accept that life doesn't need to be forced, you learn to align with it. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that we cannot control the sea, but we can learn to surf its waves. When we stop fighting against what we can't control, we start to live with more clarity, peace, and purpose. Conclusion. Buddhist wisdom invites us to live more simply, but with deep peace. By letting go of the need to control, we create space for life to unfold in the most true and rich way. Remember, true strength doesn't come from fighting the current, but from learning to swim with it. You don't need to control the future or circumstances to be happy. Happiness comes when we accept the present and trust in the flow of life. If this content resonated with you, share with someone who could benefit from this message, and subscribe for more transformative insights. And as always, leave a comment below. What are you ready to let go of in your life? We look forward to hearing your reflections. Until next time, take a deep breath, trust, and move gently with life.